Hello there. Today I was looking for something to watch, and while I was looking through the classics list on IMDb, I saw Jaws and thought I'd get a reintroduction to monster sharks. Jaws was released in 1975 and follows a killer shark that's terrorizing the community of Amity. It's based on the novel by Peter Benchley and was adapted into a film by him and Carl Gottlieb. It was directed by Steven Spielberg and stars Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, and Murray Hamilton. The story plays out like any modern horror thriller. In the beginning, the shark appears, attacks a young woman at night, and the next day, Sheriff Brody, played by Roy Scheider, shows up to investigate. The first half of the film takes place on the beach and in the town. They meet with the mayor and different constituents and discuss what to do with the shark. It's a lot of dramatic posturing between men and a few tense moments where the shark appears and starts targeting the beachgoers. They blow their whistles and cause several panics trying to get people out of the water. The shark attacks a few more times before Brody forms a posse to go out and kill the beast. The second half of the film follows their journey out to sea and their fight with the killer shark. It takes place on a small wooden boat called the Orca and mainly consists of the three men attempting to fish the shark out of the ocean while spending time getting to know one another and arguing over the best course of action. The shark is a mysterious animal that doesn't actually appear on screen until the second half of the film. It's described as a giant great white shark, and the story goes out of its way to make it seem mythical. It's bigger and stronger than most other sharks, and it seems to possess a high level of intellect. When it attacks, the film shows its perspective in the water by looking through its eyes as it approaches its victims. Tense, dramatic music builds until we get shots of the victims screaming and thrashing around in the water before they're pulled under and the scene goes silent. Jaws does a great job of making the shark seem terrifying during the first half of the film through clever camera angles and editing. So when it finally appears in the second half, it's almost comical how bad the animatronic they used is. It looks like a giant toy and barely functions. It ends up ramming its head into the boat over and over again while its jaws struggle to open and close. The protagonist of the film is a sheriff who is afraid of the water, and he doesn't have much of a personality beyond being a generic good guy. He loves his kids and wife and tries to do the right thing at first, but quickly finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place. He serves as a vessel for the audience to experience the story, and he gets an action hero moment near the end, but he isn't a memorable character. Roy Scheider plays him in a serious manner and develops good chemistry with Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss, but beyond that, he doesn't have much of an impact on the film. Robert Shaw plays Quint the Shark Hunter, and Richard Dreyfuss plays Hooper the Oceanographer. Their characters are slightly more interesting than Sheriff Brody, but they're still one-dimensional characters who don't garner much sympathy or investment. Each of them gets to do some decent fear reactions, and Shaw gets to do a great monologue about World War II and sing a little bit, but outside of that, they don't get much opportunity to stand out. The general cast was somewhat disappointing. They aren't believable in their roles, and there are several awkward line deliveries that just don't work. The story plays out in a consistent manner, but starts off in a fantastical way and continues to be larger than life for the entire film. You have to ignore everything you might know about sharks in order to follow along with it and appreciate the story, but once you accept that this shark is more like a monster than a shark, the story makes sense. It's not that exciting though, because the shark only targets random people, and only once does it actually manage to get someone we care about. But the film doesn't give that one person's death that much weight. It's kind of like watching a documentary about a tragic event where they gloss over all the emotional aspects. Visuals in the visual journey make sense from start to finish and are easy to follow, but the film looks quite outdated and the graphics aren't impressive when compared to today's horror thrillers. They struggle with lighting during the night scenes, only managing to show off barely formed silhouettes, and using the killer's perspective to up the horror factor of the film has been done 1,000 times since this film was made. It might have been a revolutionary technique at the time, but when compared to the works that copied it, it doesn't hold up as a shining example anymore. The shark itself looks like a cheap toy and doesn't elicit a sense of dread or fear. I doubt it even looked scary to audiences at the time. The one thing the visuals do well outside of the early shark attacks is the jump scares. They have these different shots where something horrifying floats into view, music cuts, and then the characters have a huge reaction. Each time I found myself jumping out of my seat. They were just so well done. There aren't that many in the film, but each of them would stand out even among modern jump scares. The soundtrack is still exceptional today, and this part of the film has definitely held up. It uses scored instrumentals to build out the atmosphere and the emotions of the story, and ends up carrying most of the film on its back. The tense music that plays whenever the shark appears serves as the perfect tension builder, and they even use it to fake out the audience several times. They have mysterious magical sounding tracks that play whenever something is uncertain, and happy relieving tracks for the other emotions. It is a bit loud at times and interferes with the dialogue now and again, but the dialogue isn't that important in this film. Overall, I was a little disappointed with Jaws. It doesn't hold up to the nostalgic memories. Its main draw is its use of the killer's perspective to create tension, which is a technique that has been incorporated into most modern horrors. It's been done better, using modern visuals, with stories that are actually interesting. The general cast gave wooden performances, and while the leads did put on a good show, they were limited by the writing. The soundtrack is really well done and carries the film for a long time, but there isn't much to get out of this film beyond a few jump scares and some decent music. If you really want some film history, you can give this film a try, but go into it with lowered expectations. As for a rating, I give this film a 5 out of 10, and remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye bye!